The Marines love their M27s and don't want the Army's new M7. This is not just Marines trying to beat the stereotype that all they get is Army hand-downs. They have real reasons for this decision. A Marine Corps spokesperson told Task and Purpose. The Corps is sticking with the M27 because it better fits unique service requirements, including amphibious doctrinal implement, and because the Marines are balancing modernization with seamless interoperability across the joint foreseen with coalition partners. There is a lot to unpack from those statements, like what those unique service requirements are, how this fits with how Marines want to fight, and the limits of those plans that also make the M27 their darling. In the meantime, though, they'll continue to monitor the Army's M7 to inform future requirements. But there's no rush to swap rifles just because the Army has a new thing. This is usually where internet arguments goof the rails. So, we're going to get ahead of that a little bit because people usually want this to be egg and fight. M27 versus M7, 5.56 versus 6.8. Marines versus Army. But the Marines are not making this decision because of comments and internet fights. They're making it on doctrine, sustainment, and risk. The rifle is the easy part. The hard part is what you have to drag behind it. Ammunition, magazines, parts, training, and a supply chain that has to work from ship to shore under threat. So, let's talk about what these rifles actually are and why amphibious doctrinal employment is doing most of the heavy lifting in that Marine quote. What is the M27? The M27 Infantry Automatic Rifle or IRISA Marine Corps' version of the HK416 family. The Heckler & Koch HK416 is widely used by Norway, France, Germany, Luxembourg, and is in consideration to replace the SA-80 and UK service in Project Greyburn. We do have a video on Project Greyburn, so if you want to go check that out. It's chambered in 5.56 NATO. It uses a short stroke piston system and it feeds from standard 30-round magazines. Length comes in at 331 halves to 37 and a half in depending on the stock position, and about 8.16 pound for the weapon itself. You can fire on semi or full auto. Barrel length is 16.5 inches and it is cold hammer forged. And the official documentation is that it is effective out to 700 meters, but some say that with an optic you can easily hit 1000. It has a lot of real estate on the quad rails for accessories. An optic, thermal imager, aiming laser or a PEX system, a sling, backup irons, a bipod, a foregrip handle, one of those angle supports that make your rifle in Call of Duty more accurate, a flashlight, a backup flashlight, chainsaw, flamethrower. All of those have room. That was one of the kind of complaints with the M7 is that it just didn't have a lot of real estate for accessories, and grunts love the accessories. Now, Marines are amphibious in nature and spend a lot of time around water, especially these days after leaving landlocked Afghanistan. So, Westhold call out that it can be submerged and fire after being drained. It comes with corrosion resistance aimed at a maritime environment to make it easier to keep clean and functioning. You'll still have to spend an entire afternoon cleaning it, unless you hide a 20 in the well. Though, the M27 was originally supposed to give squads a lighter, more accurate automatic weapon than the M249, so without a belt-fed gunner having to drag around a whole small logistics empire of linked ammo. The M27 was firstest in combat in 2011 in Afghanistan. Not to inject myself into the story too much here, but I do remember when we got first IRs, as they were more commonly called, in in 2011. Right before we deployed to Helmand Province, there was this ginger, like a real Liginger machine gunner who named his eye Pinkness. I don't know why that always stuck out to me, but it did. And I guess because like at the time those moda montages playing Bodies by Drowning Pool and a lot of Slayer were really big, so everybody was pretty amped up, and it was a little cringy but it was fun. Anyway, over time the Corps expanded fielding well beyond the original automatic rifleman role to the point where M27 became the standard rifle for Marine infantry squads. And the Marines have been modernizing around that decision. Marine Corps Systems Command began fielding suppressors at scale for employment on the M27, M4, and M4A1 a few years ago. To anybody who served in the Marines during the GWAT days, this level of personal equipment is truly remarkable. In 2011, the same year the M27 was first in combat, Marine infantry battalions were still deploying to Afghanistan with M16A for South. This is the time when we literally got Army hand-downs. Even the M50 gas mask Wega came in that ugly gray-green colored case that the Army used. You know the color I'm talking about. It isn't really gray. It isn't really green. It's like if me was a color. So with suppressors, high cuts, anti-ship missiles, new ACVs, small drones, and even sometimes food, the Marines are equipping themselves all, and the M27 is a pretty big part of that. So, that's the Marine baseline, a 5.56 rifle they like with a mature ecosystem in a caliber that plays nicely with the wider joint and coalition world. Now, let's talk about the Army's new rifle. Because the M7 isn't really a rifle, it's a rifle plus a new ammunition family, plus a new optic rolled into one modernization package. The Army's M7 The M7 is the Army's rifle component of Next Generation Squad Weapon Program. Officially, it's a 6.8 x 8 by 51mm rifle and it's being filled alongside the M250 automatic rifle with a shared ammunition family. The M7 is listed at 8.4 pounds and 9.8 pounds with a suppressor. Length is listed at 31 in or 36 in with a suppressor and a 13 in barrel. There is currently an updated version that some are calling the Carbini or the M7A1, and we will have a video out on that soon. But that version reduces the weight to 7.33 pounds dry and 8.64 pounds with a suppressor. The suppress links sure within 11 inches barrel. The M7 also comes with the M27 fire control optic as part of the BIGGR and GSW story. This is a little bit more than an optic. It is a powered system with onboard computing and sensors meant to help with ranging and ballistic solutions. And the Army's pitches that system works as a package, rifle, ammo, and optic. They've been kind of quiet about the range, but the jacked up 6.8 with the XM157 should have no problem with 1000 meters. And yes, the magazine capacity is a thing. DOT and notice them 7 fielding load includes 720-round magazines whereas the M4 is usually 730-round magazines. That doesn't mean the Army is doomed to run out of ammo instantly, but it does tell you what the Army is trading for that new ammo and that new capability. Those dimensions and performance put it right in the M27 neighborhood, but with a heavier round that has better ballistics performance for personnel and even light vehicle work. You'd think that ammo alone would make the Marines' minds up for them. And in a way, it did. Just note in the affirmative. A new caliber is a ammo problem, new logistics problem. A powered optic is a new sustainment problem. And a whole new rifle ecosystem is a new training problem. The Army is paying to choose those costs now because it's trying to solve an Army problem set. The Marines are looking at the same world and just solving it differently. When Marine spokesperson told us that the M27 fits amphibious doctrinal implement, that's a summary of how the Marine Corps expects to fight and how it expects to survive. The Marines have been reshaping the service through Force Des in 2030 to better align the Corps for naval expeditionary warfare and distributed naval operations with a focus on great power, competition and other buzz phrases that just mean fight good, everywhere in actual Marine language. At its heart is Expeditionary Advanced Base Operations ORIO. This is expeditionary warfare that uses mobile allo signature forces operating from austere temporary locations inside a contested maritime environment to do sea denial, support sea control or enable fleet sustainment. That is how the Marines describe it. We will simplify that, but the key phrase there is relatively easy to maintain and sustain. That's important because what all those fancy words are really saying is that being stuck out in the middle of the ocean for weeks with no real supply lines is a real problem. So the easier it is to keep and maintain these weapons and keep feeding them ammo, the better off you'll be. Because getting things to some remote island where you and your pals are hiding out with anti-ship missiles is not an easy task. Especially when the enemy has anti-ship missiles and a lot of other things themselves. And then there is the fact that right now there just isn't enough 6.8 to go.
And Winchester still getting the capacity facility up to speed, which they're saying should be producing 15 million rounds per month within the next few months. When it was a chat show, it read to Winchester about the plant, and it was told that they don't speak to the press there. Anyway, it's a Marine stick with the M27. They stick with las 5.56. Their magazines, their ammunition, and their basic supply planning remain aligned with a huge chunk of the joint force and the top coalition. Partnership also means they don't have to build a second reflective ecosystem that follows the man to ships into boats and across an island supply chain. If the marines jump to CM7, thereby in a nuclear no magazines and all the problems that come with that. You also have to consider that the mains do not fit like an army bracket parked next to a big logistics hub. The marines often fight as part of a naval campaign. At least that's what they're designed to. With resupply flowing through ships and connectors, matchups anticipated fighting between infantry will be at relatively closer range in those environments. So volume up fire which romp max range. This is a scenario that the military found itself in when they started rolling. Then 16 out during the Vietnam War where they just needed volume up fire because effects were happening a lot. Closer marine doctrine, that's why the marine spokesperson pirate. Amphibious doctrinal employment with seamless interoperability across the joint force and with coalition partners. The mains are signaling that they want modernization, but they want modernization that doesn't make the sustainment plan harder than it already is. There's also another reason that marines can afford to be patient. This debate is not a new one, and the Army system is still working through real-world testing and refinement. Back in 2020, Marine Corps systems commanded to world back language that implied the marines had decided to replace the M27 via the Army's NGSW program. Tascan Pepas caved that action at the time, and the takeaway was basically the same as today. The marines re-evaluate, but they aren't signing up until it fits their requirements. In its fiscal year 2024 annual report entry on NGSW, DOT, is amazes preliminary findings from a classified report. The public says da 6.8 general purpose ammunition showcased increased little OVC. M855-1. That's the big top version of the M855 legendary. Green tips that most of us used during the GWAT. But there have also been some disgruntled rumblings from the soldiers, actually using them 7 segundos. As we covered at the time, a report by Army Captain Braden Trent, which presented Madden Day Marine in May of 2025, called CM7 Amphit. Cited weight, ergonomics, emo capacity, suppress performance, barrel wear, and other issues to justify the Amphit moniker. Now, this doesn't mean that the M7 is a complete failure. It kind of just means that the system is still being tuned, and the Army is still learning what it takes to make the system soldier-proof in the way a frontliner rifle has to be. And as we mentioned, there is already an updated version that directly addresses many of those issues that Captain Trent mentioned. But still, the Marines really don't have the time or the budget for those growing pains. If you're the Marines, you are just fine watching from the sidelines as the Army bears the cost of making this a mature and reliable system so that you can go buy more things that you need now, like smart drones, weapons like the Red Wolf, vehicles like the ACV, and the medium landing ship. They already have a rifle that they like and it works really well, so why rag about? And to be clear, the mains are not saying never. They're saying that right now. They explicitly said they'll continue to monitor CM7 to inform future requirements, and they keep evaluating whether equipment meets their unique expeditionary requirements. So, what would actually make mains change their means? You need a situation where the benefits of CM7 system are so clear and so durable that they outweigh the cost of introducing a nuclear into a naval expeditionary force. That might happen if the Army 6.88 ecosystem becomes a clear joint stand over time with coalition partners and the NATO adopting around. It might happen if the uptick se suppress, and the reliability issues mature to the point where the system is not only lethal, but also as boringly dependent as an infantry rifle needs to be. And it might happen if the Marine Corps decides that is which a fight demands more individual weapon performance at distance, even at the cost of a more complicated sustainment plan. But all that may take a while. By then, the Army could have added 3 or 4 different camo uniforms and at least a dozen different PT uniforms by then. We're talking like at least 10 years. So right now, the mains already have a rifle that they like in a clave that's interoperable, and with the mature accessories is designed for a service that expects to get wet and still have to fight. The M27 checks a lot of the boxes that main doctrine is putting it that above the list maintainable, sustainment-friendly, and ready for a force that's trying to stay mobile and low signature. Meanwhile, the Army's M7 is a delivered leap. No caliber, no optic, no system, and it's still proving itself through the messy process of testing, fixes, and fielding. This isn't the mains being stubborn just to be stubborn. Nor is it the Marines condemning CM7. It's just the Marines sticking with a rifle that best fits how they plan to fight and how they plan to be supplied while letting the Army absorb the cost and risk of providing a new small arms ecosystem, and if the army's back pays off, the Marines will be watching, and they'll be in a position to adapt what actually works and get back to their army and man down routes. I'm sure with a lot of the discussion going on about M27, that you'll have a lot to say in the comments about M27. So, go ahead and drop the thing below. I'm really looking forward to seeing where this one goes. And, if you're going to drop a comment below and you haven't already subscribed or hit the like button, and all that other stuff that I'm supposed to tell you to do, please go ahead and hit subscribe, hit like, share it with your friends. Every little bit does help and we appreciate it very much. Alright, now it's channel update time. Y rotate this script and se vie data the video. There isn't a whole lot to talk about today. My email kayelegion@rpoos.com.imin. Go ahead and reach out to me if you have anything you need to talk to somebody, whatever it is. I'm there. I'm still catching up. I'm just always going to be catching up. We have our store, s2ri.tsqrpost.com. Code actually watch for 10% off. We have a new Discord server as well. I'll put that link, that's in the description automatically. So, if you're on Discord, go follow it there. We are kind of looking for something off Discord because they did that with verification stuff that I'm kind of a personal privacy guy. I know that doesn't make sense because I put my name and the mail out there, but I'm saying verification stuff kinda freaks me out. It basically would force adults into child service if they don't verify their age, which is just a mess hell to me. But anyways, I'm going to shut up. I'm Kyle Gunn, your friendly ginger producer man. You are all dismissed. Thank you so much for being here. I will see you next.